Sir John Hayes.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in human affairs, there is persistent fascination with novelty. It is curious that people clamour for what's different, for the other, whatever that other might look like. And it is this fascination that leads to the similar interest, indeed preoccupation, with internationalism, even to the point where that means giving up power to someone beyond these shores. It's a damaging preoccupation. At its most curious, it leads to the peculiarity of a. I mean, I'm sorry he's not here because he made a remarkably articulate speech, as I told him after. The member for Dundee, the representative of a nationalist party, making the case out against nationalism. A member who believes in sovereignty, making an argument that sovereignty didn't really matter, although he did qualify it by saying that sovereignty in Scotland meant something different. He and I will have an opportunity, no doubt, to debate that at some length in the future. It is what fuelled, of course, the sentiment that pervaded after the referendum, particularly on the benches opposite and amongst Liberals. It's a matter of record. I don't have a Liberal bone on my body, Madam Deputy Speaker, of any kind, social, cultural, political, economic, none of them. And I shall be making a case against free trade in a few moments, but let's come back to that in a second. It led to that cadre of people who populate a good deal of the establishment, as the honourable member for Chelsea and Fulham will know, because a lot of the establishment live in his constituency. Not surprising, they picked one of their own, really. It led to a cadre of people who couldn't bear to come to terms with the result of the referendum. For the people had spoken. And, of course, the people's will directly contradicted the assumptions, the presumptions of that establishment, which they foisted on the people for donkey's years. I don't say, by the way, that all the guilt lies on the other side of the chamber. It began with Harold Macmillan, then Ted Heath, who sold out our fishermen, and it went on and on. Roy Jack, I mean, the gallery of sins, of villains, is almost endless. I mean, one thinks of Roy Jenkins, and there were noble exceptions. Peter Shaw for Labour. Tony Benn made the case for national self-government in what I think was one of the best speeches that my right honourable friend has told me he heard on the chamber. Made me cry. In his donkey's years here.
Not many people do that.
And on our side, there were noble exceptions too. Enoch Powell stands proud amongst those, but there are many others too. Our lamented friend. Michael Foot, of course, on the other side. Yeah, I'm not going to go into the whole list, by the way, Madam Deputy Speaker, just in case you thought it was.
A lot of them Labour.
But I was thinking of Bill Cash, Sir Bill, who gave such great service. Seen as a bit of an outsider for the great bulk of his career, and then in the last part of it, proved right. My goodness, what's better than that in politics? They say all political careers end in failure. Well, Bill Cash's didn't, did it? Bill Cash's political career ended in success. And it is that I will happily give way.
It hasn't ended.
It hasn't ended yet. He's still a sprightly 83. He's been texting some of us throughout the debate. But would you agree with me very quickly? His great success was the sovereignty clause that finally said, after years of campaigning, this Parliament is sovereign. That is on the statute book, and that's because of Bill.
Well, of course, my honourable friend is absolutely right. His political career has now ended, his parliamentary one has, and I can, alongside him, acknowledge that indeed Sir Bill has texted me this afternoon, along with no doubt many other of his dear, and my right honourable friend, I just gathered. So, this tension, if you like, between the will of the people expressed in the referendum in 2016 and the remaining prevailing assumptions of what I described earlier as the Liberal establishment underpins this debate. Now, I want to, in the spirit of generosity, which I tend to employ, there are exceptions, by the way, intervene on me if you like, but in that spirit, I want to say that there are those on the benches opposite, we heard it from the Honourable Member from Walthamstow, who, albeit grudgingly, but nonetheless, acknowledge that the referendum result can't be reversed, that we can't go back into the EU. That wasn't what they said immediately after, of course. They fought hard for ages to try and frustrate the outcome. They used every parliamentary technique they could conjure and extra parliamentary techniques in well-funded legal cases to try and derail Brexit. So the scepticism personified by my honourable friend from Beaconsfield, who has said she was doubtful about the government's intent, is well-founded. I know the Minister will want to reassure us when he rises at the end of this debate. That scepticism, in his case at least, won't be proven to be a prediction of what might happen next. But the scepticism is well-founded because of the history. It was a Labour politician said that you don't need a crystal ball when you've got the record book. Aaron Bevan, of course. And we have the record book when it comes to the party opposite, and worse still, the party to my left. So I hope the Minister will, for example, be crystal clear, as he's been invited to be throughout the course of this debate, on alignment, dynamic alignment. Better described, I think, as dynamic realignment, realigning our relationship with the EU, an alignment that will bring us closer to the EU, not to our friends and neighbours in Europe. Of course, cooperation and collaboration is a natural part of mature policies, but closer to the EU in terms of governance, in terms of regulation, in terms of law, in terms of interference in our affairs, and in terms, crucially, of jurisdiction. For it is the exercise of authority we're really debating here, not the ability, indeed the willingness to share, but the danger of succumbing to a power that takes authority further and further from the British people. The member for Bournemouth, it was either west or east, let's just say Bournemouth. The member for Bournemouth talked about some of the challenges which face the world, the global challenges. The answers to those global challenges, he was right to do so, by the way, and I thought he made a first half of his speech, I thought was very good, actually. It got worse as it went on, but it was, he made some good points, as I said at the time. The answer to those challenges is not to become more globalist, not to give in to those forces he described that are exerting power in an unaccountable way. It's actually to bring power back to the people. When we spoke of taking back control, those of us who advocated Brexit, we did so in part because we want power to be vested in this Parliament, accountable to the people who that power affects. You, Madam Deputy Speaker, are almost a model for this, and others would do well to follow that model. We are answerable to our constituents. We are known by our constituents. They understand that we make decisions on their behalf. We, newer members of the House, will be coming to terms with what that means, the relentlessness of that. I don't mind it myself, but I can see how it can wear down less forceful and robust souls than me. But that constant interaction with our constituents is the lifeblood of democracy. Whoever knew who their member of the European Parliament was? I couldn't remember who the Tories were, let alone the people from the other parties. And they certainly didn't enjoy, when we were members of the EU, that kind of intimate relationship, that sense of mutual ownership. You know, we kind of feel we own our constituency, and they feel they own us, and quite right too. They do. Do they not? Well, I don't know. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm being chided. I'd only heard of the Honourable Gentleman when he arrived here. I didn't know him. I never knew who he was before then. But and I say that without disrespect. Without disrespect, I happily give way to him.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The right honourable gentleman is correct. And whilst I was in the European Parliament, we got some opinion poll research on whether members could name their member of the European Parliament. And only 2% of British people could name any member of the European Parliament, and regrettably it wasn't me.
It is typical of the honourable gentleman's humility and good humour that he should acknowledge that in the chamber in such an open and frank way, and I pay tribute to him for it. Thank you so much. So the scepticism that I've described and tried to articulate takes the form of real doubts about what realignment will really mean. Let me just deal with 3 or 4 specifics. I spoke earlier in intervention about security and defence. Of course it's right that we have a continuing relationship with our neighbours in those terms. We do work with the agencies across Europe, but the critical security relationship we enjoy is with the Five Eyes countries. We enjoy relations with many other countries in the world that are outside the Five Eyes and Europe, by the way. And it is vitally important that we reinforce that relationship. And that, of course, overlaps with our commitment to NATO and defence. Now, there may be some virtues in information sharing, well, there certainly are virtues in various kinds of cooperation. But anything which undermines the sovereignty, to use the word again, of that security and defence alliance seems to me to be highly questionable and possibly worse, risky. In terms of free movement, when we think back to the referendum, whilst of course it wasn't all about immigration, immigration was perhaps the most pressing salient during those times. People resented and resisted free movement, and they wanted to bring it to an end. And when they heard the term take back control, for many of them, that was epitomised by the need to control our borders, to decide who came here and who didn't. And whilst it may be understandable that people want to wax lyrical about young people being able to travel across the continent, what they say less enthusiastically, or perhaps they don't say at all, is that young people from the entire continent will want to travel here. And until we know the terms of that, that could easily mean those people competing with Britons for scarce jobs. We have large numbers of people, young people, not in education, employment and training. No government has dealt with that satisfactorily. I started speaking about this more than 20 years ago. Previous Labour governments and indeed Conservative governments didn't really grasp that nettle as firmly as they ought to have done. Sadly, the trend is upwards, disturbing. And I don't want people in my country to have to compete for education places, for training places, for other opportunities with a large number, and we could be talking about tens of thousands of people entering the country by these means. And there will be suspicions that it is the beginning of a return to free movement. What did that do? What did mass immigration do? Prime Minister was right about this. I mean, he's a very late convert, but nonetheless, the Bible says we must welcome all converts, of course, with enthusiasm. What mass immigration did was displace investment in recruitment, training and retention of workers, displace investment on automation and improving workplaces, making us ever more dependent on low-skilled labour. It had the effect of stultifying the economy. And any suggestion we may return to that will inhibit, perhaps ruin, the government's intention of improving productivity. Because if you really want to deal with productivity, you have to create a high-tech, high-skilled economy. And I'm fearful that that broader consideration won't necessarily hold sway when we get into negotiations with the EU on this issue of some relaxation of the bar on free movement, which was brought by the referendum. So mindful there are enthusiastic, insightful bright colleagues on all sides of the House, but mainly on this side, that want to contribute to the debate, I will draw my remarks to the close with this thought. See, I can hear colleagues saying, no, go on. But I'm going to resist those overtures, Madam Deputy Speaker, and draw my remarks to a close with this thought. You know,
Encore. Encore.
How short a close?
C.S. Lewis said, we are what we think we are. Now, I think we're a proud, independent nation that's made a disproportionate contribution as part of Western civilization to world history. I think our past is noble and something which should give us a sense of achievement and pride. I don't buy this self-loathing which seems to have taken hold with too much of the very establishment that I derided earlier. Oh, now I don't know if the honourable gentleman's a self-loathing individual. Well, let's see. I happily give way.
The honourable gentleman giving way. I trust I'm not. I hope that the honourable gentleman appreciated earlier how that I said how excited I was for the prospects ahead of us. I just wanted to thank him, though, for not only identifying me a couple of times and identifying me as associated with my constituents, which I'm certainly very proud to be, but also not just the honourable gentleman, but also a number of his colleagues, for making me feel that I've been in this place not just for 10 months, but for 10 years, and have the privilege of seeing the Brexit debate live and writ large again. It's a rare opportunity I thought I'd get as a member of this House, and I'm most grateful.
Warts and all.
I am
for exceptionalism.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman. Let him see it in this way, through this prism. I am, for all intents and purposes, Brexit. Okay, I stand for Brexit. I am a patriot, proud of my working class origins.
I think I want to rejoin.
Proud of my working class origins, determined to do my best for my constituents and my country, driven by a combination of the national interest and the common good. That was the spirit that inspired Brexit. Inspired those of us who campaigned for it and those who voted for it, which 75% of my constituents in South Holland and the Deepings did. I'm a bit resentful that Boston and Skegness next door was even higher, actually. It was only 1% higher. So C.S. Lewis said we are what we think we are. And I do think we're a proud country who can stand in the world in collaboration with other nations, of course, but free and sovereign. I mean, you can't have it both ways. You can't say we've done a great deal with India because we didn't have to kowtow to the EU.
Yep.
You can't say we've done a great deal with the US because we've escaped the clutches of the EU, but actually we want to creep back in. We want them to have more say in any future deals we might do. And very finally, let me end with the words of one of my political heroes, Joe Chamberlain, who understood that to protect our economy, we need to protect the jobs, the industry, the enterprise that's part of it, and not to give in to the free trade liberals. Chamberlain said, a democratic government resting on the confident support of the whole nation and not on the favour of any limited class would be very strong. It would know how to make itself respected and how to maintain the obligations and honour of the country. No member of this House should do less than that.
Well done, John.
And now, with an immediate